Hey everyone, my name is Mike Vaughn. I am a writer at Geek Vibes Nation, and I am also the author of The Ultimate Guide to Strange Cinema.
I am a senior critic for Geek Vibes Nation and also co-host of the Humdane Film Festival podcast.
And welcome to a new Video Attic new release roundup. We have some really great titles, and I'm going to let you kick it off.
Thank you. Yes, I have a trio of titles I'm starting off with. They are being newly released from Shout Factory and G Kids. And that is a trio of Makoto Shinkai anime titles, and they are The Place Promised in Our Early Days, 5 centimeters per second, and Children Who Chase Lost Voices. And for those who do not know Makoto Shinkai and are only have a surface level appreciation of anime, they may know two of the biggest animes in ever, pretty much, especially in the last decade. And he did Your Name and Weathering with You, which Shout Factory and G Kids put out in a lavish deluxe edition, which is really nice. But I'm not talking about those today. Those have been released previously. But these 3 new titles, 2 of them have been released on Blu-ray previously, and 1 is new to Blu-ray, but all of them are new to G Kids, and they did a really nice job with them. I saw a lot of fans whenever G Kids acquired his titles, they were excited because it is my impression that some of the labels that had these films before did not treat them with much respect. But I think these releases will really resonate with fans. This first title, The Place Promised in Our Early Days, is a Blu-ray debut. I'm going in release order. It is his first full-length feature. I'll expand upon that in just a little bit. And it, I don't want to go too deeply into any of these titles, but I wanted to give kind of an overarching, has a really nice inner artwork, kind of ethos of Shinkai from my understanding of what I've seen from him. I had seen those 2 titles that I showed you earlier previously, but all of these were new to me. And after watching these, I can firmly say that all of his titles pretty much, he has a really deep fascination with young love that kind of has barriers in it that can sometimes be supernatural or fantastical, but it's always a sense of longing and love. And this one, it starts off really his career really strongly. This one involves a trio of young friends. There's 2 guys and a girl, and there's aspirations to fix up this old plane that they found, and this is set in a alternate reality where that Japan has been divided in 2, with one half taken over by the Soviets. So it's an alternate history type thing, which evolves into like I said, I don't want to give too much away, but it evolves into kind of some multiple dimension type things, and some of the people being in one dimension and other people being in the other, and trying to get back together and kind of save the world from impending doom. There's high stakes, high drama, but it's really good. I really enjoyed this. This release comes with a new an interview with Shinkai, interview with the Japanese voice cast, and some trailers and stuff, and it's really good. The follow-up, 5 centimeters per second, is not quite as ambitious in scope, but it is very poetic and nice. It's about it's kind of set divided into 3 chapters, and it kind of follows this one young boy and girl who kind of have a nice romance in their youth, but circumstances causes them to move away from each other and grow apart. And it kind of just follows their path, like separated from one another, and whether like 5 centimeters per second is kind of like a poetic title of like how fast like cherry blossoms fall in the wind and stuff. It's kind of like poetic, of course. But it's very like artfully done. It's not very long. This one is actually just a little over an hour. It's like 63 minutes long. But it's very beautiful. It's very like humanistic. And the reason I would say this still gives you the bang for your buck, besides just being like a really good movie, this release contains the first Blu-ray release of Shinkai's first short called The Voices of a Distant Star, which is about 24 minutes. It's never been released on Blu-ray before, and is included as a special feature on this, which once again involves love across impossible barriers. In this case, it involves a girl who's recruited into like a space mission to fight like aliens and like a space war. And she keeps getting further away from the planet and interacting with this boy she likes on Earth. And her correspondence keeps taking like, as you get further away from Earth, of course, it's kind of like that interstellar thing where time moves like faster. So it's taking like years to get back to the communications back to the boy she likes. And it's kind of like a poetic sadness. And this one, like I said, it comes with Voices of a Distant Star. It has feature-length storyboards for each of these titles, along with interviews with Shinkai, the cast, and another short film called She and Her Cat, which is also really cute. Finally, like I said, I'm not trying to take up everyone's day, but like I just want to get into these. Children Who Chase Lost Voices is the follow-up to this, to 5 centimeters per second. It is like a full-length film, like the first one. It's 2 hours long, and this one kind of has like a lot of different elements that you might recognize from like newer movies like Coco, because this one involves a girl whose father has passed away, and she meets a boy who is from like a hidden world where the dead do not always stay dead. It's like the dead can be revived, basically. So it's kind of like you can go into this world, and she finds herself drawn into this world and trying to like discover all the secrets, and with some forces who are distrustful of like the like people from her world coming into their world, and all the drama that emanates from that. It is a very good movie. I really enjoyed it. And this includes a commentary from Shinkai, along with a selection of interviews, a making of, and all of these have really great transfers, really great audio. And this is pretty much essential for anyone who's like a big fan of animes, because he is really one of the best directors working in that field right now. And he has a new movie coming out apparently at the end of this year that I saw. But all of these movies are so like soul enriching and like slightly heartbreaking, but in a good way. So I like highly recommend all 3 of these new Shinkai titles. Even if you've had like maybe one of these on Blu-ray before, like I said, there's a lot of new stuff added that fans will want to pick up. So yes, highly recommend those.
Nice. That sounds really awesome. I know I was saying earlier in an earlier episode, I'm not super familiar with that animation style, but I definitely want to. So that's really good to know, because I will definitely want to check those out.
How we did our Giallo talk to educate me, maybe we need to do our anime talk to educate you.
Yeah, I like that idea. That not the time that this is going to air, but the time that we're recording, it's the first month of June, which is Pride Month. And I thought it was a pretty apt release with Paramount, and that is Kinky Boots. And there's the back. So this was really interesting to rewatch. I will say that. I probably haven't seen it since, maybe 2005 when it first came out.
Same.
So rewatching it, it is very, again, interesting. I think it's a well-meaning film, but I will say that we have definitely come a long way with trans representation. The movie itself is really good, although it is a little bit too overwrought, I think, at times. And its metaphor and subtext is maybe a little bit too on the nose. This is definitely a clear case where I think this works better as a musical than it does a film. I think the biggest crime is it plays a little bit too safe with its themes. And I also get a little bit uncomfortable that Lola isn't given more agency overall compared to Charlie's story, which is a little cringy because it's like his struggle. Like they kind of compare Charlie's struggle with Lola's, but Charlie's a cis white man, so it's not really an apt comparison. Yeah, it didn't get really great reviews at the time, and again, I can kind of see why. It's a shame because it is incredibly well acted and directed. Visually, it kind of has like this weird Tim Burton-esque feeling to it, which seems out of place with something like Kinky Boots, but there we go. So this does have some nice extras. Give me a look there. I believe none of this is new. It's all been ported over from previous releases. So as far as it looks, overall, it has a nice look to it. There was like some of the flashbacks looked a little like muddy and muted, but I think overall it had a vibrant look to it. I mean, I was particularly impressed because this is like a 2005 film, so you tend to see a little more like rough around the edges, but this was a higher budget film, so I think they were using kind of better overall equipment, so the transfer ergo is I think a lot nicer. I haven't ever seen this in any other format, so I can't really compare how this looks. Just to say, I think overall it looked nice. It was really crisp and clean, and yeah. So, have you seen this?
Yeah, like I was raising my hand saying I was like you with I saw it whenever it first came out because I was oddly excited to see this at like 14. I was like, okay, let's check this out. And I remember enjoying it, but like I said, I haven't seen it in 17 years now, so I'm intrigued. Like I have my expectations tempered based on what you're saying, but I'm still intrigued to check it out again because I do like the cast, especially Chiwetel Ejiofor, and I'm just interested to see how this holds up for me.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, again, its heart is in the right place. It's just it doesn't really ever get there fully like you would want it to. But having said that, I really like the musical. I know you're a musical guy, so
yeah, I haven't seen the musical. I'm not sure if I've mentioned it to you, or I know I haven't mentioned it on here, I'm pretty sure, but I used to work at a performing arts center. And I think they had Kinky Boots in like the year or two before I joined, but I was so like blown away by the fact that they had turned this into a musical because I knew about the movie and then I saw that they made a musical and I was like, a musical on that movie? Okay. And I still haven't seen it, but I really am interested. I'm going a completely opposite direction of anything we've talked about. I'm going like extremely like masculine. I'm going with Extreme Prejudice from Lionsgate through their Best Drawn Video imprint. And this is from Walter Hill, who people might know from 48 Hours or The Warriors. And this stars Nick Nolte and a lot of like, it has a really great cast. He is opposite Powers Booth. Michael Ironside is in this. William Forsythe. Who else? Clancy Brown's in this. Like, there's a lot of good people in this. But I've actually never seen this before, but I pretty much trust, even though I've been burned a few times, I trust in the best drawn video line just to give me something interesting at least. The last one was Candyman 3, so this is a huge step up from that. But in general, they usually treat me pretty well, and their releases are pretty like affordable, especially these days. You can usually find them for like $10 to $12, which is nice. This release, like this movie, it's not high art or anything, but if you're in the mood for like a well-made action movie, it's actually pretty good. Nick Nolte, he does a solid job of kind of the no nonsense, always doing the right thing Marshall, who he grew up with, like he had a best friend growing up, and now they're on opposite sides of the law. He's like this big drug dealer, and he's like a lawman. But there's actually two narratives. There's that kind of core conflict between the two friends, and then there's a side conflict where Michael Ironside is leading this band of like ex-soldiers on like an off the books mission, which is actually just them committing a crime. And there's like some moral questioning within the group of whether or not they're doing is right. And all of that kind of mixes together at the end in like a violent fashion. And it's very layered is the wrong word, because that makes it seem like this film is complex, but it's not completely complex. But there's a lot of different narrative threads going within this one that come together pretty well for an action movie, at least. So yeah, Walter Hill, he's, I think, one of the better action directors, at least from like the 80s. And this one is pretty entertaining. This release from Vestron, it's like, I don't think it's a brand new master, but it's a very solid master. There's not a ton of like damage or anything. There's some softness, but it looks nice overall. And the soundtrack, the 5.1 DTS soundtrack, sounds really nice. It's actually pretty loaded with special features. It comes with a new audio commentary from film historian Courtney C. Joyner and Henry Park. It comes with an hour-long interview with Walter Hill, which I think is an archival interview from like France, but it's in English, but is conducted in France. There's a 23-minute interview with Michael Ironside, a 25-minute interview with Clancy Brown, and a bunch of other different like interviews and like trailers and TV spots and all that good stuff. So they actually put a lot of care into this, and it's pretty cheap, like I said, right now on Amazon and anywhere you get discs. So yeah, if you're a fan of just like 80s well-made action films, I think this is a pretty solid addition to your collection.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome. And it's always like fun when I see Courtney doing stuff. I've known him for what feels like forever. He's one of the nicest guys.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I guess my next one will kind of transition nicely. Even though it's a very strange film, and that is Eraser Reborn. I must have reboot, but it is a reboot kind of. So yeah. There you go. So
just call them like you see them.
Yeah, you know. So this is from Warner Brothers. Slipcover, back, and no reversible art. This will have a digital copy. So are you familiar with the original Eraser?
I'm familiar with the cover art with Schwarzenegger on there. I've always intended to see it, but I have not seen it before.
Well, so you don't really need to have seen the 1996 action film to, I think, get what's going on. Kind of like your movie, this isn't particularly deep. It's so funny because midway through, like, they give you another exposition jump to just say, like, this is the plot now, this is what's going on. So, you know, in case you kind of fell asleep a little bit, it reminds you kind of what's going on. Yeah. So I will say I wasn't completely looking forward to this movie. And the movie does have its issues. clunky dialogue. Some of the actors do a really solid job, but others are uneven at best and kind of hammy at worst. Though I will say the direction is actually nicely done. And the movie, even though it's pretty by the numbers, it thankfully doesn't take itself too seriously. And therefore, I found it like more enjoyable. And oh my gosh, I got to tell you, there's some like amazing random stuff, like this giant CGI hippo that. So it sounds weird but it does make sense narratively. I don't want to spoil anything, but it feels like it kind of comes out of nowhere, and it's really amazing. And that also kind of brings me to it has one of the best bad guy deaths I think I've seen in a recent movie.
Nice.
Like, again, I won't spoil it, but oh my gosh, so good. And again, you know, I do like that it clearly is having fun with itself. It knows it's a cheesy action film. Like it's just serious enough to go through the motions, but I mean, it knows what it is, clearly. So I had fun with it overall. You know, I would even probably watch it again. Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. So, you know, if you were kind of thinking about just not checking this out, I mean, give it a try. Even if you just like rent it, I was expecting some like really bottom of the barrel VOD stuff, but you know, it's solid. Again, it doesn't reinvent the wheel, but it has fun with it. So that I actually might make a good double feature with your film. So
yeah, I hate that you're giving me hope that this will be fun, because I likewise was kind of dreading watching this, because it just did. I full disclosure, I have not watched a trailer. I'm not really a big trailer watcher, but just based on what I saw, it's like, this doesn't look super promising. And I'm pretty sure the lead actor is like a guy I used to watch on like a Freeform series. So I'm just like, I'm not sure how this is going to translate, but I'm still not going to get my expectations up too high, but yeah. I'll go in with more of an open mind of like, maybe this won't be terrible.
Yeah. Very much temper your expectations. Bad, yes. Enjoyable, bad, I think so.
Okay. Well, all right. We'll see how it goes. We'll see. Everyone, check out my review on the site whenever I post it. See where I fell. My next release is a series I had never heard of, but you probably have, since you're more of a Shudder watcher than I am. But that is Slasher, Flesh and Blood, which somehow I had never heard of this. I didn't realize until 3 episodes in that this was basically a season 4 of the Slasher series. I'd never heard of it before. So I was just like, okay, I've missed 3 seasons. Okay. Not that it's like an anthology show, so you don't really need to keep up with it. But this new release is a 2-disc release. It has all 8 episodes. And I ended up enjoying this. The first episode is a lot of build up and exposition, and then you start kind of getting to the meat of things with the rest of the episodes. Basically, the premise of this, it is a family is coming together to it is built on, like, this quote is like a mashup of Succession and Survivor, which I can kind of see, because it's like a very dysfunctional family like Succession. They're going to see the patriarch, who is played by David Cronenberg, which that was the reason I was checking this out, because I was just like, what is he doing in here? But he kind of plays this like twisted evil patriarch who is on his deathbed, and like one thing that this family does is like they engage in like kind of deadly games and like twisted games. And like this year, they're going to all compete to basically earn the sole spot in this guy's will. So it turns into like almost like this battle royale type thing between family members. and playing different games. So there's like that was kind of like my entryway into it, of like enjoyment, because kind of like escape room where there's just kind of like fun little set pieces where people are trying to survive like through fun game, like interesting gameplay. There was kind of that, but then also concurrently there is a masked killer right here who is picking off some of them throughout like their gameplay, like isolating some of them and killing them if they're not getting killed in the game. So there's like a lot of depth in this. One thing I will say, I was very surprised, like the acting is not great, but it is passable for what this is. It's a Canadian show, so it's made very kind of cheaply, but there's a really great gore effects. Like there is some really gnarly stuff in here. There was a few times Jessica, my wife, was not watching this with me, but she passed through the room a couple times, and she I heard her go like, "Yikes!" because there was like entrails just falling from like bisected bodies and stuff. It is gore central in here, so if you love gore, this is a fun time. And I'll also say there's actually some like really surprising developments as far as they were killing off people earlier than I thought they would. Like there were some people picked off like in episode like 3 that I expected to make it to the end. So I was like, okay, so this isn't like high art, but for a Shudder series, like about a serial killer and people playing deadly games, it's a fun time. And the presentation's really good. It's 4 episodes per disc. It runs at a good like bit rate. It's good AV quality. Has some behind the scenes footage, a conversation with Cronenberg, some interviews with the actors kind of reliving their deaths like on the show, so watch that after you've completed everything. But yeah, it's overall a fun time. I had to get past the first episode to kind of get into the groove.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like that series. Now, that season I have not watched yet, but I think I've seen the other all of the other seasons, I believe. They definitely vary hugely in quality, I will say that. But I will say that usually like that show's pretty interesting, at least. I've never kind of bored with it. Again, I haven't seen that particular season yet, so that kind of makes me want to maybe get into that. So my next title is I'm sticking with the trend of movies that I thought I was gonna absolutely hate, but ended up kind of liking. And oh boy.
You thought you were gonna hate this?
I'm clearly not this movie's demographic, which is fine. Well, first of all, here's the better look of it, and does have a little bit of some bonus content, slipcover, and this has the DVD and Blu-ray. We'll also have the digital copy. Oh, do you have
I was gonna say, like, I saw the Teen Titans Go to the movies in theaters, and it was a really fun time. So I was just showing off my collection or my appreciation for the Teen Titans.
It's funny because they do cleverly work that in the movie into the. So okay, I know very little about Teen Titans Go, just that it's squarely aimed at kind of juvenile humor, which is fine if that's what you're into. Go off. So
is that an attack?
It's okay. It's not something that necessarily connects with me, but it's cool if it connects with other people. So I will say it's really interesting because the bulk of this film it's a crossover, but that's kind of a humorous misdirection, because the bulk of the film actually is about the superhero girls, and They kind of have a little bit of the Teen Titans, and they actually kind of weave that into the humor of it. Like they'll like cut over to like the Teen Titans being like, why aren't we more in this, and so on and so on.
Yeah.
The story is overall pretty decent. I mean, it's again kind of very by the numbers, but I enjoyed it. I definitely liked it way more than I thought I would have. Surprisingly, a lot of the jokes landed. I mean, some of them didn't, but I definitely did get some like laughs. There's some really, I thought, clever like meta jokes. There is a third crossover finale at the end, which I thought was really funny and clever. Oh, yeah, you seen that?
Yeah. I was gonna mention, like, I wasn't gonna spoil it for anyone, but that kind of made the movie for me. I was just like, yes, that's great.
Yeah, so I mean, that all by itself kind of made it worth it, as like I say. But yeah, it was fun. And and you as well have reviewed a lot of like the DC animated stuff, and the animation is always really solid. Now, it's interesting because some of the animation looks a little rough around the edges, but I think it's just basically the style, the animation style of particularly the superhero girls, which again I wasn't used to, but apparently that's kind of in line with the house style of the series. But yeah, overall really nice. The Blu-ray looks great. These animated films from DC and Warner Brothers always really pops. The colors are really vibrant. Definitely what you would want from like a big crazy superhero movie. And yeah, I am fine with admitting that I liked it. It was good. I don't know if I would go as far as seeing the other Teen Titans stuff, but
yeah, I would say that this is not as good as like the theatrical Teen Titans go to the movies that they release, but it is a lot of fun. I like you said, like kind of the tenets of Teen Titans Go, at least. Like I love the original Teen Titans as like a more serious series that also has some jokes, but this is more kind of like that Deadpool for kids type humor where it's very self-referential and stuff. And I really like kind of like the jokes they made in this, of it being a crossover and using the Teen Titans Go popularity to help like kind of the struggling ratings of DC superhero girls. Like they just flat out said, like, we're trying to help boost their ratings. I was just like, that's pretty awesome. They just like flat out say that. They're like, we need you guys to watch DC superhero girls. So we'll throw Teen Titans in here to lull you in.
Yeah, and again, it is a fun misdirection because the Teen Titans are maybe in it for a little tiny bit of the movie.
Yeah, like 20-25 minutes out of like the 80 minutes maybe.
Yeah. But yeah, like I was kind of dreading it, but I ended up liking it. So
well, I was not dreading it, and I also ended up liking it. So yeah. I think overall it's a recommendation from us.
It's a thumbs up from both of us.
Yes. I'm going to bring us down in terms of like fun and joy and stuff, because this is a dark subject matter. This is from Cohen Films, and this is Oranges and Sunshine with Emily Watson, which is based on a true story. And the true story is devastating. It is, I think this, like the main portion of the story happened in the 80s or 90s, I'm not sure. And the actual like crimes happened like several decades before that, I think in like the 50s. But what this film is Emily Watson plays kind of like a social worker type character who's dealing with like people who are trying to deal with it starts out kind of like an adoption support group type thing, and like people who like long to know their parents and stuff. And she hears about this story about being this person tells a story about being transported on a boat when they were younger, and it sparks in her mind. She's like, well, that can't be right. You must be misremembering things and stuff. And the person's like, no, I was transported. And then she starts hearing more stories like this and comes to find out that there was like hundreds of kids who were just deported from England to Australia and like told that their parents had like died or just like said that they were orphans when they may have had like living parents in England, and they were just like shipped off and like made to like work and like do like labor, and like there's like some abuse and just all kinds of just horrible stuff that like hundreds of these children experienced. And kind of the government tried to just deny it and sweep it under the rug for years until this woman helped bring all these people together and like expose what had happened to them, and trying to get people to take accountability for what the government had signed off on, because they were like, no, we were doing a good thing, we were getting them away from like tough situations or whatever, but they did this illegally and it was way messed up. And so yeah, Emily Watson is the person who's leading the charge, trying to bring all this to light, get people reconnected with some with like their parents. A lot of them have like died in like the intervening like 40 or 50 years. And it's just like, it's ridiculous. And it's like, it makes you mad about like what happened. And with everything else going on in the world, it just adds on to just your frustration with like government and like, even though this wasn't in the United States, I could see something like this happening. But like it's really powerful and impactful and like well acted. It's not the easiest watch, but it's very intriguing. And like, this probably isn't like the best movie. Like, it's not like a perfect movie, but I think the story makes up for some of the deficits in the filmmaking that I kind of give some stuff a pass more so. But yeah, it's just the story itself is probably more interesting than the movie, but it's still a really solid movie. If you're interested, if that story sounds interesting to you, it's well acted and all that stuff. And there's like a couple special features about the making of and some interviews with the cast and the director and stuff. So it's a solid Blu-ray, and if you're up for it, it's recommended.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like things weren't all sunshine and oranges over there.
Yeah, that's kind of like the children, whenever they were deported, they were promised oranges and sunshine, like you're going to a better place, and then they just went to like the most horrible place.
Yeah, and that sounds like a depressing low bar too, if that's what you're excited about.
Yeah.
Like you would need more than that to entice me anywhere. Just saying. So let's keep this mystery train going, shall we?
Yeah.
So my next one is called Hostile Territory, and this is from Wogo USA, which is another one that I had never really heard of, and it's says it came out this year. So this is basically it takes place right after the end of the Civil War, and the main character has kids, but he is taken as a POW. Meanwhile, his wife dies, and it leaves his kids to be orphaned. So they make a really good point of explaining this, what they call the orphan train, which is basically what it sounds like. It's a train full of orphans that will get adopted or go to foster care. And I think so, the main thing is they're going into hostile territory, as the title says. And the father actually isn't dead. He is alive and well, and kind of goes on this journey to rescue his kids from the aforementioned territory that is hostile. So I'm going to start with the good things. Okay. It's very well shot. The acting is really decent. The production design also is very solid, especially for a lower budget outing. And the premise is really interesting. I learned a lot. I didn't really know anything about this kind of transportation system of orphaned kids, but it definitely makes sense logistically, like what would happen with displaced children. That actually weirdly kind of ties into your movie, sort of. Having said that, it's another one of those movies that it really didn't quite connect with me on an emotional level. Like, it very much tries to kind of hit you in that sort of emotional area. But I think it just didn't really go there. It's a little bit maybe too overwrought, and unfortunately the plot is a little bit unfocused a lot of times. Like, you can see where it's going, and the plot really ramps up, and then it kind of goes on a side tangent, which kind of like kills any momentum the movie has or has been building up. And it keeps constantly doing that, and it really made it hard for me to engage and, again, like, connect with it on an emotional level. Like, it very much wants to be like a Coen Brothers film, but it is not. And it's a little bit too, like, on the nose. It's a little bit too saccharine for me. It's hard to do a movie like this because you don't want to be too kind of cold and remote, but you also don't want to go the extreme and be too sentimental. And I think that this, like, kicks it into sentimental gear, like, hardcore. But yeah, I was, like, mildly entertained. The cast is pretty good. I have to give a shout out to Lou Temple, who's in this, in a little bit of it. I met Lou at a convention, and he was by far one of the nicest people you'd ever want to meet. So it's always kind of fun when I see him, like, pop up in a movie. Yeah, it didn't really connect with me, but I think it did have some merit. Again, well shot, well directed, just the pacing, and I think some of it being a little too saccharine, I think, killed it for me.
Yeah, I wasn't sure about that one, so it sounds like I may have made the right decision not to check that one out for now. So I want to preface this by saying, if the label who is releasing this is listening to this, like, I appreciate what you're doing, but I have to be honest, so I have to preface this. Okay. So yeah, I watched. I'm not completely through it, but I'm working my way through it. RoboCop, the series on Blu-ray, which is from a newer label called Liberation Hall. And I appreciate any label that is trying to get into, like, the Blu-ray game. And, like, I didn't have high hopes for the series necessarily, but I figured, like, it'd be like a kind of cheesy, entertaining watch. And it's a 5-disc set. And yeah, it has there's 21 normal length episodes, and then the, like, almost 2-hour pilot, which was created from, like, an unused script for, like, RoboCop 2. And this kind of disregards the events of RoboCop 2 and 3 and just kind of picks up after the first one, but it is much more of, like, a family friendly, like, basic, like, kind of like procedural with RoboCop in it, and kind of like there's some, like, kind of the stylistic flourishes of the RoboCop universe. Like, there's, like, ridiculous ads and, like, the news program that's kind of, like, heightened satirical, like, stuff. But they kind of like, it's basically a neutered version of RoboCop, and with, like, because you're not going to have all of, like, the crazy carnage that you get in RoboCop in this. I'll just talk about the show first, then I'll get to some of my bigger issues. So yeah, the show itself, it's entertaining enough. If you know what you're getting into and you kind of separate it from what RoboCop is, and you just kind of view it as kind of like a cheesy, like, like villain of the week type sci-fi action show. It's actually like pretty entertaining, like I said, in a cheesy way. The villains are over the top. RoboCop, he never kills anyone. He like shoots guns out of people's hands, and it's like kind of just like a cyclical, you kind of know what you're getting. You get like a little bit of like some family development with like RoboCop, like kind of longing for his like family, but knowing that he can't be with him. There's some of that stuff, and like there's some stuff with like his partner that's like they have a good chemistry. So it's like it's passable enough as like a cheesy show from 1994 that's RoboCop, but it's on basic television, and it's a Canadian production, so it's like I want to say it's cheaply made, but for the time it was actually pretty expensive, which is why it didn't go beyond a season. It was like $1.5 million to $2 million per episode for this. So the series itself, it's entertaining enough. My problems with this release is this could have been an okay release if they hadn't. It says newly remastered, but what they did is they I'll just say they cropped the original aspect ratio, and they made this like 4:3 series into a 16:9, and they did not really try hard to make it completely look right. Like some shows have tried to do that, like The Wire, and like a lot of like the newer shows have like, and like I think like Seinfeld on Netflix, like they framed it so like the 16:9 presentation, like it doesn't always look correct, but it looks good. It doesn't look good. Like there's like people's like half of their heads are like chopped off because it's like kind of been like magnified, and like it really bothers me. And like you can see that there's like just on the verge of like words being chopped off, and I'm just like, you cannot put this on a like set, like you cannot just chop this show up like this. I'd rather you just kept its original aspect ratio, and not like, and even if it would have looked like, oh, my TV's not filled, like some people who are going to be buying this, they want this to be in the correct aspect ratio. And apparently they released the show in its original aspect ratio on DVD. From what I'm hearing, that also has like some de-interlacing problems where things aren't completely like copacetic on that either. There's some like weird like picture like warbling and stuff. So it's like, it's hard to find like a decent version of this show on disc. Which sucks because the audio presentation is really nice. It has like a LCPM 2.0 track, but the picture itself, like there's no distinguishing it from a DVD basically. Like I have DVDs of shows from like the early 2000s that look better than this, and like I can't understand that. I needed this just in its normal aspect ratio, not with heads cut off and like text like almost cut off, and it bothers me so much. It's hard to enjoy this whenever you see that. And like it's sad because like people are really excited about this release, but now everyone's like, oh, it's not in the correct aspect ratio, I'm not getting it. And I was like, well, I'll see how it looks, and it does not look good. So Liberation Hall, I'm sorry, I wish you had done better, especially because you put like a fair amount of special features on this. Like there's a lot of like, there's some behind the scenes stuff, there's like some new interviews with the cast, there's different featurettes. This could have been a really good release if the core masters that they had like used had not been like cropped. So if you don't think that would bother you and you want to own the RoboCop series, go for it. But if you're sensitive at all to cropping, this is going to bother you a lot. So unfortunately, they did not do as well as could be with RoboCop.
Yeah, that's a shame. It's funny because I feel like a lot of people probably didn't really even realize that it was a show.
Yeah, I didn't.
I know there was like a Simpsons gag where it was kind of like they were, I think, making fun of this RoboCop series, or maybe it was like Robo something because of licensing. But so I am going to. There's no great segue because this is so different, and that is Our Hospitality, and it is from Kino Classics.
Nice.
And yeah, so I will say that I'm trying to get more into silent films. I've already really been a fan of horror, like silent horror films, and to that end, I think comedy is also a really good genre to get into if you're kind of just dipping your toes into silent films. So this is, of course, from Buster Keaton. And the story is basically about feuding families. It is a not very thinly veiled Hatfield and McCoy's sort of parody, with a little bit of Romeo and Juliet, with like the lovers from each side kind of coming together. And this is basically an early rom-com with some action set pieces thrown in. So the story is overall pretty decent, though I don't think it's really one of my favorite Keaton films. But again, the comedy is really good overall. There is some incredible visual gags, and I really liked how there is some subtle dark humor that is kind of mixed in. Like there's a really funny bit where Keaton is invited over to the quote unquote enemy's house, and the head honcho's like, oh no, we can't kill him now. It would be bad manners since he's our house guest. It's like stuff like that. And again, the gags are really great. The visual tricks and early kind of like in-camera effects are really amazing for the time. I don't think I can really just stress that enough, how a lot of these early films, especially comedies, really push the medium. And this certainly is no different. And yeah, it has a lot of charm. Keaton always had that kind of charisma that made his movies very engaging and easy to watch. He's not one of my favorite silent comedians. I'm more of a Harold Lloyd guy, but that's here nor there. And the restoration of this, so this was a 2019 release, and I have to say, visually, it's jaw-dropping just how beautiful this looks. The restoration, a lot of the artifacts, dirt and scratches have been cleaned. It's by no means flawless, but also when you consider this movie is close to 100 years old, it looks pretty darn good. And it actually is pretty stacked with some great features. I really had a blast just going through all these. The commentary in particular is really great. It gives a lot of like information and context, which I think on repeat viewing made it a richer experience overall, which I think is what a really good commentary should do. And yeah, I liked it. I thought it was fun. Again, from the other Keaton movies that I've seen, I think that this is like not top tier, but certainly not, I would say, bottom of the barrel either. It's kind of in the middle there, but pretty good. And if you're new to silent films, I would highly recommend this film or like any other like comedy of that era.
Yeah, that's awesome. I reviewed, I think it was like probably like 2 years ago now. I think it was the Buster Keaton Cohen Collection Volume 4, I believe. And I think the film was called Go West or Out West. But I completely loved that film. I think College was also on there, but Go West, like I freaking loved it. Like his relationship with this bull, loved it. So I'm gonna have to check this one out for sure. So yeah, sticking with the Cohen, or not Cohen, Kino love, along with Scorpion releasing, is the Dario Argento's The Phantom of the Opera. So trying out some more later period Argento. The last time did not go so well with The Card Player, but this one was a little bit better. Still not perfect, but definitely better. This finds Argento kind of taking, like, twisting the classic Phantom of the Opera story and going just really like kind of dark and really grimy with it. It starts with like this phantom being rescued as a baby, kind of floating down this sewer and like rescued by these group of rats and then raised by rats. Of course, Argento just, so he's like really grimy and like has like stringy hair and stuff, and it's amusing. And then you kind of see the Phantom kind of terrorizing some of the people who get like close to his kind of underground lair. You see like a mason worker bisected really early on. This is an episode for bisection apparently, because like there's lots of just torsos dripping down entrails. So you see some of that early on, and then you kind of see him get infatuated with this young singer played by Asia Argento. And this was kind of earlier in her career, before she was all like tatted up and stuff, and she was still just kind of fresh faced and like playing the object of desire. This film's not perfect, but it's pretty entertaining for an Argento effort. You can tell he still has a really good eye for visuals. I really like kind of like how he framed some of the like the set design and like the production design that he like had for like the opera like theater itself. The Phantom's lair, it has like some nice nuances and it's shot well. It's like it's very warm, but like kind of like seedy. It's like kind of, he balances it really well. So it's kind of like almost like tragically romantic, but you're also a little bit uncomfortable, which you would kind of expect from Argento. The man playing the Phantom here, I believe Julian Sands, he is okay, but he's a little overwrought. There's both an English and an Italian like audio track on this. I started out with the Italian track, but then I switched over to the English track, and I actually found that to be more enjoyable, much like The Card Player, because a majority of the people speaking in this are speaking English, with just some people speaking Italian. So while you could go either way, I personally, in this case, most people seem to be speaking English, so I found that less kind of like jarring overall. So yeah, the film has issues, but it's okay. It has it has an audio commentary with Troy Howarth and Nathaniel Thompson. It has an interview with Dario Argento and the set designer and the producer. So yeah, it's a pretty nice release. It looks pretty solid overall. There's some like murkiness in the darkness, but overall it's a good disc with some nice special features. If you're an Argento fan, this isn't one of his best, but it's pretty good.
Yeah, that sounds interesting. That's definitely an Argento film that I have not seen. And kind of just to build off of that, it's actually a really exciting time to be an Argento fan, because they are releasing, the rumor has it, 5 new titles in Ultra HD, which I'm really excited about. And I think the other day they mentioned that Inferno is going to be one of the titles, but which label, it kind of remains to be seen. But yeah, but I have not seen that particular Argento film. I'll probably end up maybe getting that at some point, just as a completist, but it's not very high on my watch list for sure.
Yeah, temper your expectations.
Yeah, I mean, his later stuff definitely can be a lot of hit or miss. I think some of it's more miss. But there you go. So my next title is from our good friends at Mondo Macabra, and that is the Ravager and Bushwhacker. There is the back.
Nice.
And no reversible art. But you do want to take note that these are a region all, so you can play that anywhere. Hopefully that's some good, useful information for you out there. But yeah, so this was quite the double feature. So these are both sexploitation films, and I use that word very lightly because the sex in the sexploitation is like, I mean, you see more graphic stuff on like primetime TV, I think. But anyways, so the Ravager is about a demented ex-Vietnam vet who, after witnessing a sexual assault, becomes completely transfixed with that idea, and then it leads him to become a serial rapist and murderer. But his method of choice is blowing people up.
Jeez.
Just exploding them.
Yeah.
As one does. So I would say if you wanted a title that kind of summed up what Something Weird Video puts out, I think this is kind of a prime example. And I've been a really big fan of that label since like the early 2000s. So this movie has all the hallmarks of one of those movies, though: bad acting, hilariously awful dialogue, but it kind of has a punk rock DIY style to it. And I like this movie in particular because I think that it very much is in on its own joke. Like it very much knows that it's a low budget, cheap thrill kind of movie. So that kind of gives it some room to at least be enjoyable, even though a lot of it is kind of grimy. I mean, the big through line is assault, which is not, I don't really find enjoyable to watch. But I will say that there is one scene where it actually was kind of disturbing because it was like the so it's narrated, and it kind of goes out of its way to like say that the titular villain is particularly hates these lesbians, and like actually kind of goes out of his way to make their death a little bit more gruesome, which again is legit disturbing. The rest of the movie, though, is very like hokey, and it's almost like too silly to really take seriously. The next one I really didn't like as much. Again, it's another sexploitation film about these people stranded in the mountain, and basically a bushwhacker is like a hillbilly type, and that's who basically is stalking them. Some grizzled old man in a Daniel Boone skinned hat. So yeah, again, it's funny because this was from 1968, and it almost feels very much like a proto slasher where he like hunts these women one by one. But the movie basically is plotless, and the sex is very neutered. It's very it's not sexy, and it's yeah, I don't even think it works as a good sexploitation film. But I know people do. This kind of does have a little bit of a cult following, so take that for what it's worth. Both films do look very rough. I know that typically Mondo and Something Weird Video do pretty excellent transfers, but they kind of let you know right up front that they were working with like some pretty poor elements. I'm actually fine with that because I think that it kind of gives it that grindhouse feel. So it's not like where it's not like this, for example, where, I want it to look beautiful, but something like the Bushwhacker, like when it looks kind of grimy and scratchy, it kind of gives it that effect that you want. So yeah, unfortunately, it kind of doesn't have any features. It has the trailers. It would have been nice to have like a commentary or something, but it's a very solid release. I know these are some titles that again have had a big cult following. I think the first film is much better than the second one. But yeah, like Mondo always kills it. I love Something Weird Video. I love when they collaborate with other labels. That's always really exciting. So definitely, I think worth checking out. Just keep your expectations kind of low.
All right. I'm also going to do a double feature for my final title. This is from Kino Classics, and it is the Fu Manchu double feature. It's has The Mysterious Dr. Fu Manchu and The Return of Dr. Fu Manchu. And I will state right off the bat, there are some issues with this, but from a narrative standpoint, but I'll get into that. So yeah, there's a slipcover, and both films are on one disc, and they're not very long. They're like 82 minutes and 73 minutes. So it's not like packed with like compression issues or anything like that. So these are both pre-code films, and they both star Warner Oland. And basically, okay, the plot of this is the Dr. Fu Manchu, it's basically kind of like a series that's like had different interpretations over the years. This one, the first film begins with the doctor trying to save some people during like, I think it's like either an earthquake or like an invasion or something, but he helps like this white family from like people dying, but then in the process his own family dies, and he basically drives him to like vow vengeance on white people basically, and just kind of create chaos wherever he goes. And he's like super smart because he's a doctor and he knows how to like have concoctions and stuff who can like that can like gases that can kill people and blah blah blah. So it's like kind of like a light thriller horror film. And the second one kind of continues that path. He returns, and it actually picks up pretty much right after the end of the first movie and follows some of the same characters, including Jean Arthur, who was a nice surprise to see her in this one, and also Neil Hamilton. So the obvious issue with this is these films both tie into the stereotype of like stereotyping Asians as people to be feared and that they are like out to get white people, and like just conjuring that idea of like distrust in Asian people. So yeah, that just baseline is unfortunate and very problematic, but it is kind of like, if you can get past that, if that is not like a deal breaker for you, which I can understand if it is, obviously, there are some like interesting performances and like thriller elements to this, kind of like the old like Universal monster movies. These are Universal releases, and they are kind of able to push the boundaries a little bit more in that way that pre-code films could at that time. But these films, they're pretty entertaining. The first one I think is a little bit better than the second one. The second one is kind of it's more of a contained piece, and it's almost like a hostage piece throughout, so it doesn't really have a lot of variance in the plot, whereas the first one, you're kind of like, they're trying to like track down Fu Manchu because he has like kidnapped people and all that good stuff. So the films, they're okay, and with that huge asterisk of like, this is culturally inappropriate, and we acknowledge that. These are both from 2K Masters, and they're not up to the level of something like a pristine Warner Archive transfer, but it's still fairly solid. There's a lot of nicks and scratches, but like this, like it's a stable image and there's like some depth to it. There is like a little bit of flickering and stuff, but these are films from 1929 and 1930, so you can kind of forgive it for like not doing a full like UCLA backed restoration like a lot of films from this time need. So yeah, it's decent presentations. That both films have audio commentaries from film critic Tim Lucas, along with an assortment of trailers, and he helps gives you some extra context to the period of which these films were made. So it kind of helps you kind of contextualize these. So if you're interested in like this period of like early pre-code filmmaking, it's a fairly entertaining watch with the warnings in place. So Dr. Fu Manchu double feature.
Yeah, that looks again pretty interesting. I know that was something on my radar, but yeah, something that, you know, it's a really good point of, you know, separating the time that it was made with you know, some of the unfortunate portrayals is, I know sometimes something that I kind of struggle with some of the older movies that I like. I think that just kind of goes with being an older movie fan. You have to unfortunately take some of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, you said pretty decent, huh?
Yeah, I enjoy both of them. It's like as just sheer entertainment, I thought it was good. And like I said, especially seeing Jean Arthur in that, I really like her usually. So they're entertaining enough, especially for this being a double feature. That makes the value even better. For like Kino disc can get pretty like cheap, so like it's a good solid investment, I think, if you're into that period.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I love like anything like pre-code, especially like Universal, so definitely wanted to check that out. So my final film is a little bit of an older release, but one that I think is really worthwhile, and that is Behind the White Glasses, and that is about, of course, the filmmaker Lena Wertmuller. And here is the front and the back. And are you super familiar with her films?
No, from what I know about her, I'm pretty sure she was the first woman directed or nominated for Best Director, if I'm not mistaken. But that's pretty much my extent of my knowledge about her.
Yeah, so it's really interesting, and I will say that this is a great primer for her films. It's really interesting, and this is a little bit of a side tangent, but the movie from, I think this was 2015 maybe, starts off with her looking at some old Flash Gordon comics, and that she very much like loves that kind of medium. And it kind of got me thinking about somebody that was so well regarded in cinema, and somebody that like clearly likes superhero media. And it made me think, like, I wonder if she would have directed a superhero movie and what she kind of thought of this whole, is it cinema?
Yeah.
Which I could rant all day about, but I won't. I'll spare you. Anyways, it's overall really good film. It has some really amazing interviews. They don't go super in depth. That's something that I'll kind of point out a little bit later, but overall it's a really good overview of her movies, and they talk to her collaborators, some of the actors that she's worked with, and of course it has a lot of the director herself talking, and it's very candid, which I love. She unfortunately passed away in late 2021 at 93, so this kind of makes this a really valuable, I think, film artifact to have. Having said that, I don't know if the filmmaker did a good enough job to really tap into what makes her movies so palpable and groundbreaking. Again, it's a good starter for newcomers, but I don't think it really gets into like the heart of her work like it could. Visually, so this is a DVD, obviously, so it looks pretty good for just being 720p. I really had wished that it got a Blu-ray treatment. The colors are a little bit muted, and like I was actually kind of thrown by, even like outside of the archival material, like some of the new footage they shot, it really looks a little bit like early 2000s, like shot on digital. Didn't really have that kind of crisp, clean quality that you would want. But you know, it's perfectly fine. Again, I think it's an overall really good film. I think it's worth checking out. If you are somebody that was kind of interested in really deep diving her work, I would definitely say this is a good place to start. So yeah, overall really solid. Has some nice behind the scenes and a trailer. Yeah, it's really fascinating. I really have enjoyed a lot of her movies. I'm by no means an expert, but you know, it's like fun actually getting to see like a really candid exploration of her as a person and a filmmaker. So
sounds great. Yeah, I'll have to check that out.
Definitely. And I guess that will do for this episode. We've had a lot of wide varying degrees of movies and bisections. So
yep.
It's been a lot of fun, as always. So you know, now is the time for the obligatory like and subscribe. We are always putting out some really great content, so you don't want to miss out on that. And just thank you for hanging out with us.